So, after attempting to do certain things and trying to get certain things to work, there were issues with technology. And so, in that regard, I'm going to go into a few different things. Um, because, today is the 25th of November in 2020, and as most of you know, obviously, the presidential election has not fully been called, despite the fact that it is very difficult to believe, in my opinion, that former Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, had won the election. And it's not to throw a titty baby temper tantrum on my part. I fully acknowledge that. I'm not being rude in this regard. It's just very difficult for me to actually believe that, not because of my personal bias for having voted for the current President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and Vice President of the United States of America, Mike Pence, for re-election for another 4 more years. I do acknowledge my own bias. However, I also cannot, after as many rallies as I have been to, which in 2020 only, I didn't go to any rallies in 2015 or 2016. I did see them or hear them on television as far as the news, but I didn't see in person the amount of rallies. I saw the reports and so on and so forth. I supported him back in 2016's presidential election. I support him in this re-election. I know for a fact that there are more people who genuinely supported the re-election campaign for President Donald Trump to be re-elected. And maybe it's, I don't know, the aspects in reference to the 1980s addendum in New Jersey in reference to the aspects which Republicans were not allowed to check into the electoral ethical systems for that time from 1982 up until this particular election, which is the first time for a presidential election that the Republican Party is allowed to actually know the ethical process for that. Prior to this current time frame in 2020, the Republican Party was denied the ability to actually look into the ethics behind the elections. They were kept out. At least that's what was explained at a meeting that I went to at the Williamson County headquarters in Texas. And so I'm kind of taken aback. This is not in any offense to former President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. I admit I didn't vote for then, who is now the former President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, mainly because of the military aspects that I disagreed with. A bunch of people brought up race, and to me, no offense to the Obamas. I truly hope that there is no offense taken. I didn't pay attention to your race. Not presidential race, I didn't pay attention to your ethnic background, because to be quite frank, I didn't look at the news in regards to your pictures. I only read the information. So it's not in any offense towards the Obamas or the Bidens or anything like that. I personally didn't look at the pictures. I didn't watch videos. I read the news. I read the words. I listened to what was said. I didn't look. It might sound weird, and that's perfectly fine. However, I didn't look, because what you look like should have absolutely nothing to do with who is President and Vice President of the United States of America. So I truly hope that the former President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, and former First Lady of the United States of America, Miss Michelle, I truly hope that there's not any offense taken that I didn't look at what you look like when you were running or while you were President and First Lady. I was just listening and paying attention to the reports as far as what was going on. And it was genuinely only in reference to the policy disagreement. Had nothing to do with the ethnic background as to why I voted for Senator John McCain at the time with Governor Palin, and then later was it Senator Mitt Romney and Senator Paul Ryan, 2012. It had nothing to do with the ethnic background. I don't even know what ethnic background they are. No offense, not to be rude. I just didn't pay attention to that. I paid attention to what was actually being said and what was being represented and the importances of things being taken care of for the military guys and law enforcement guys and fire department guys and EMS guys. And so, in such, the current President of the United States of America has done so much to assist not only active duty, National Guard, and reservists, but also has done so much to assist veterans of both the armed forces of the United States of America as well as law enforcement. And while there's not that much really brought up in reference to the fire department and EMS, there have been substantial changes to assist in so many ways. And so I realistically, because of actually not only the rallies that were continued and hearing the amount of enthusiasm in the crowds for the rallies in comparison from one presidential candidate to the other, but also for the first time ever actually going to, it was the Trump parades, but the amount of people that were lined up, you can look at footage all across the board and see the amount of people. And then there's the fact that there's the silent majority that was silently voting in reference to the first presidential election of the current President of the United States of America, which only, in my opinion, would have increased because of the amount of benefits that have been going on all across the board, with the exception of the ones that have been throwing temper tantrums in the street. And even they, as far, and I'm not talking about in more recent times of 2020, I'm talking about from 2016 to 2019, with the ones that were throwing temper tantrums in the street, usually college students, going on and on and on about that. And it's very difficult for me to understand from what I have actually seen, from what I have paid attention to, from what I've heard and listened to. And it's very important because hearing and listening are very different things. And so the aspects in regards to how this is still going on, the only thing I can think of is truly in reference to the ethical portions in regards of the different electoral standards. And this particular year of 2020 is the first year in over 20 years, or 30 years, or 40 years, I don't know for the exact number, of how the GOP, Republican Party, the independents, as well, being able to actually look into the ethical aspects behind the portions of the actual voting aspects. And so I really, I do not understand, and it is not to be all, wah, wah, wah about it in regards to, those particular videos seen throughout, and heard mainly, as far as the screaming and crying in the streets and so on and so forth. I truly am having a very difficult time understanding as to why, with all of the sport that actually came out, actually stepped forward, actually was unafraid to show their support for not only the President of the United States of America and Vice President of the United States of America being reelected for a second term, but also in regards to quite a few individual candidates throughout the Republican Party. Just in the state of Texas, you've got somebody like Carrie Isaac. I admit, again, my personal bias, I did vote for her. I did. And I saw the support for her. And I heard it. And I listened. So it's very difficult for me to understand. Is it because of the electoral process in reference to the machines, and that also in regards of the ethics being able to be checked for the first time since the early 1980s? If that is the reason, or excuse me, borderline, in reference to why there is just the lack of cohesive working together. I mean, I get it, news, you want to have something flashy and pay attention and look at this and look at that and all that sort of stuff. However, you wonder why certain people are so disenfranchised and have such a low view in certain regards. You kind of need to pay attention. And in this regard, you have people who have lost faith in some ways to the different processes, and you actually, over the past 4 to 6 years, have had people who were genuinely enthusiastic about being able to vote for the first time. And, I mean, I voted for the first time back in 2000. My first vote was a straight Republican ticket. Fully acknowledge that. I voted for who became, but is now, former President George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney, as far as for the United States of America. My personal nightmare that I was having before I had fought to join the United States of America Armed Forces, out of the two candidates that were up for election, and again, no offense towards the Democratic Party, out of the two choices as to what my nightmare was of who was going to be the most ideal candidate to be able to handle what I was very afraid of and what did occur as far as in 2001, out of the two candidates, President George W. Bush was able to take care of it with his cabinet and Vice President Dick Cheney. And yeah, it was not necessarily the fluffiest of fluffy stuff as far as what occurred, but I mean, I would think that even back then, when looking now in 2020, who was running for the presidential and vice presidential candidacy back then for the United States of America, probably could agree that they were glad that they didn't have to deal with all of that. And so, in regards to not only making sure the military is taken care of, and law enforcement, and fire department, and EMS, but also multiple other aspects, the current President of the United States of America and current Vice President of the United States of America, as well as their First and Second Ladies, have been doing so much to genuinely assist the American people, as well as the military. And while there is the pandemic thing, whatever, in regards to the mask or whatever, when you can blow smoke out of a mask and it still permeates, and it is a larger molecule than the actual coronavirus thingamabob, I'm just saying that literally shows you physically the lack of that protection in that regard. I'm just saying. I'm sure you literally can see it. And of multiple masks. And so, but that's a whole other ball of wax in regards to, I genuinely, after seeing the amount of individuals throughout the state of Texas, as well as the different rallies, and even still, the current President of the United States of America, I think that he actually cut back on the number of rallies because of what was going on, and you could still see and hear the enthusiasm for his re-election. I personally don't understand what is difficult, because the only thing that I can personally think of, and maybe and I hope I don't come across as arrogant when I say this, when I was scuba diving in 2009, it was then President Barack Obama and Miss Michelle as the First Lady, and then who is now former Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and Miss Jill Biden as Second Lady. The only thing I can see in that regard is, wanting to be involved in because I landed at the bottom of the ocean back when they were President and Vice President of the United States of America. I mean, there is the ethical portion. There fully is. There fully is the ethical portions of the electoral aspect being looked into. But yeah, it was then President Barack Obama and then Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, who were in office when I landed at the bottom of the ocean in service, specifically from the Mafia's abyss in regards to the USNS Vandenberg. I didn't deny that. But at that time, I didn't know who I was supposed to reach out and contact. I kind of figured from what had occurred at the time, you believed me from personal experience. And so it wasn't to deny them of that credit because they were in office. I also didn't speak out in a lot of ways in certain regards because I had to learn how to overcome certain things at that time. But that's a whole other ball of wax than specifically in regards to the election. So yeah, it's important to take care of the electoral aspects and the ethical portions, and then the fact that the state of Texas and Colonel Allen West, who was a congressman but is the head of the RNC right now, he brought up how these systems that were used in a majority of states were actually banned from being used in the state of Texas because of the security breaches at the time that they were found. So then I wonder, in reference to the legal team for the President and Vice President of the United States of America for the electoral aspect, I wonder if in that reference point, not just because of the ease to breach the security portions of the electoral portions, if those particular systems were used only in the areas of, and then I really, though I did not pay attention to the ethnic background of former President Barack Obama and First Lady Miss Michelle, it's not of any offense to them. I hope they really aren't offended by that. Nonetheless, are the states that voted for the election of former Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, to be president, are you really going to tell me I'm supposed to believe that if the truth in regards to the ethnic background was paid to attention so much back when he was running for president, that there were more votes than during his election? I don't think it takes a headedry to figure that one out. I mean, I'm not the smartest person. I mean, I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. However, with everything that's going on as far as Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and etc., I have a very difficult time believing that there were more votes in regards to being for the former Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and Senator Kamala Harris, the former District Attorney of California, than for former President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, and Miss Michelle. I mean, I could be wrong, and I just have a very difficult time believing that. It just seems weird. I can't be the only person who very much sees that as odd. I could see that if, in regards to a very different circumstance, but not the current one. And so, I, I, I'm putting it out there. I dispute the disputed facts. Isn't that fact-checking stuff? That's me making a joke. May have fallen flat, but that's okay. I can laugh, so that's where I'm very much confused. And I personally believe in voter identification to make sure I cannot be the only one. So that's what I have to say on that. Today, the 25th of November, 2020. You guys have a good one. And seriously, think about that. I know there's plenty of others who have done quite a few write-ups and reports and videos and etc., etc., etc. I cannot be the only person who supported and supports the current President of the United States of America and current Vice President of the United States of America for their re-election. So anyway, you guys have a good one. You think about that.